back to her brilliant best. At other times, it all got a little nervy for Fernandez, but I tell you what, she'd have taken that at the start of the match, a straight sets win against a tough opponent in Alexandra Eala. First set, on fire.
On 5-2, you're playing an absolute perfect match, and suddenly you're down love 30 at 5-4. What changed?
Honestly, it's what my coach told me. I'd love 30, 5-4. He said, you know, she's not gonna go down easy, as you can see. So she's gonna fight. You're gonna have to take the match. So I was glad that I trusted him, and I just trusted the training that we've done. So happy to get the win here.
Overall, I thought you played an absolutely terrific match. How would you rate your performance from 1 to 10?
Oh, it was definitely a very, very high performance. I'd say a 7 out of 10. It was 8, 9 out of 10 until the 6-1-5-2. But, you know, there's always that little lapse of concentration. I'm just glad that I stayed positive as much as possible. And, of course, the crowd helped me. So, dankeschön.
You are a lefty, she's a lefty. You were playing in blue, she was playing in blue. You like to play fast, she likes to play fast. Was it almost like playing a mirror image of yourself?
Oh man, 100%. I mean, I remember watching her play a couple years back at the Rafa Nadal Academy, and she was playing super fast. And I remember telling my coach at the time, saying like, "Wow, she plays quick." Yeah. So it was like a mirror, because he said, "Look, it's exactly like you. So just enjoy, figure it out, and have fun."
We're talking about playing fast. Are you somebody that likes to do things fast on the court or generally in life?
Stop everything you are doing right now. Put your phone down, close every single tab on your browser, and give me your complete and undivided attention for the next few minutes. Because what I am about to walk you through is not just a tennis match. It is not just a scoreline. It is not just another result buried in the sports section that you scrolled past without a second thought. What happened inside that arena in Stuttgart, Germany, is the kind of moment that stops you cold. The kind of moment that reminds you, with brutal and unforgiving clarity, exactly how savage and merciless the world of professional sports truly is. We are talking about hot tears streaming down a young woman's face in front of thousands of people and millions of cameras. We are talking about a moment so raw, so emotionally devastating, that it broke through the screen and reached into the chests of tennis fans all around the globe and just squeezed. So if you have ever doubted the emotional cost of chasing greatness at the highest level, buckle up, because this story is going to hit you somewhere deep. This is the Stuttgart Open in Germany, one of the most prestigious indoor clay court tournaments on the entire WTA calendar. High stakes, high pressure, and absolutely zero room for error. And right there, in the round of 32, in a match that most casual fans probably scrolled past without a second glance, something happened that the entire tennis world is still talking about. Alexandra Eala, the young Filipino teenage sensation who has been carrying the weight of an entire nation's hopes on her shoulders, stepped onto that red clay court. And what followed was one of the most painful, heartbreaking, and emotionally shattering sequences in a career of a player who is still only just beginning to discover what she is truly made of.
But before we get into the match itself, before we break down every single point and every single moment that led to that devastating image of Eala crying on the baseline, we need to talk about who this young woman is. Because if you do not understand the full picture, you will never understand why those tears meant so much. Alexandra Eala is not just another young tennis player trying to make her mark on the professional circuit. She is a phenomenon, a genuinely once-in-a-generation Filipino talent who burst onto the international tennis scene with a game that made coaches, analysts, and former champions stop and take notice. She hits the ball with ferocious power and precision for someone her age. She moves with an athleticism that seems almost unfair, and she plays with a competitive fire that burns so intensely you can practically feel it radiating through your screen. In the Philippines, she is not just a tennis player, she is a symbol. She is proof that a kid from Southeast Asia can go toe-to-toe with the best players on the planet. Every time she steps onto a professional court, she is not just playing for herself, she is playing for millions of people back home who see themselves in her, who dream through her, who wake up in the early hours of the morning just to watch her compete. That is an extraordinary amount of weight for any human being to carry, let alone someone who is still in the earliest chapters of her professional journey. And here is the thing that made this particular match even more terrifying before a single ball was even struck. Alexandra Eala received a last-minute call-up to compete in the main draw of this tournament, a sudden, unexpected opportunity that most young players would dream about, a chance to compete on a massive stage against elite opposition. But there was a problem, a very serious, very glaring problem that Eala herself was completely aware of walking into that arena. Her record on clay, the very surface she was about to compete on, was a dismal 5 wins and 13 losses, 5 and 13, on a surface that punishes weakness and rewards patience above everything else. That is not just a bad record, that is a flashing red warning sign screaming at you from every direction.
Because here is what casual fans fundamentally misunderstand about red clay as a tennis surface. It is not just a different color, it is an entirely different sport. Red clay is the most physically brutal, mentally exhausting, leg-destroying surface that has ever existed in the history of racket sports. When the ball hits that red dirt, it slows down dramatically, it kicks up high, it absorbs the pace and power that hardcourt players rely on to finish points quickly. What that means in practice is that rallies extend to agonizing, seemingly endless lengths. Points that would last 3 or 4 shots on a hard court can stretch to 15, 20, 30 shots on clay. Your legs are constantly working, constantly sliding, constantly driving and recovering. Your lungs are burning. Your mind is being tested at every single moment. And if you do not have the tactical patience, the physical conditioning, and the mental toughness specifically built for this surface, it will eat you alive. For Alexandra Eala, a player whose strengths are built around pace and aggression, walking onto red clay in Stuttgart was like walking into a battlefield where every single weapon she carries had been stripped from her hands. And then there was the opponent waiting for her on the other side of the net, the opponent who in every single way imaginable represented everything that Eala would need years to become. Leylah Fernandez, the Canadian star, a former U.S. Open finalist, a top 25 player in the world, a player who does not just compete on clay, she thrives on it, she feasts on it. Fernandez operates with a level of frantic, relentless, suffocating energy that is unlike almost anything else on the women's tour. She moves like she has a motor inside her that simply does not have an off switch. She plays with a tactical aggression that is specifically designed to crush opponents mentally long before she has to crush them physically. She takes the ball incredibly early. She changes directions with dizzying speed. She forces you to make decisions faster than your brain can process them. And she does it relentlessly, point after point after point, until your confidence is completely gone and your legs feel like concrete. When Fernandez walked onto that court in Stuttgart, she did not walk out there simply to win a tennis match and move into the next round. She walked out there to send a message, a brutal, uncompromising, non-negotiable message about the gap that still exists between proven elite experience and young, hungry, but still developing talent. And from the very first point, that message was being delivered with devastating clarity. The first set was over almost before it began, 6-1, a scoreline that looks brutal on paper but felt even more ruthless to actually watch. Fernandez took control from the very first exchange and never once loosened her grip. She robbed Eala of the one currency that every clay court player desperately needs above everything else: time. By taking the ball early, by stepping inside the baseline and punishing every single opportunity, Fernandez denied Eala the chance to settle into rallies, find her rhythm, and build confidence. Every time Eala tried to construct a point, Fernandez was already there, already hitting, already moving, already forcing the next crisis. It was like trying to have a conversation while someone is constantly interrupting you before you can finish a single sentence. And Eala fought,
You need to understand that. She did not give up. She did not go through the motions. She was sprinting from corner to corner, sliding on the red dirt in every direction, reaching for balls that most players at her level would not even chase. She was grinding with every single ounce of effort her body could produce. But Fernandez was an impenetrable concrete wall. Break after break after break, Fernandez ruthlessly and systematically targeted Eala's weaker second serve, stepping inside the baseline, loading up, and punishing the ball with an aggression that left absolutely no margin for error. The first set ended 6-1, and the damage was already done.
Then came the second set. And for a moment, just a brief and tantalizing moment, it looked like Eala might dig deep and find something. She was competing harder, making Fernandez work for every single point. But tennis at this level is a game of margins, and the margins were always in Fernandez's favor. The scoreboard crept forward, 5-2. Fernandez serving for her dominance, firmly in control, completely composed. And it was right there, in that exact moment, at 5-2 in the second set, that the sequence happened. The moment that sent shockwaves through the tennis community and across the internet. The broadcast camera zoomed in slowly on Alexandra Eala's face, and what it captured was not just an athlete having a bad day at the office. What it captured was a complete and total human breakdown. Her features crumbled, her eyes filled with heavy, uncontrollable tears. She was crying, right there on the baseline, in the middle of a match that was still technically ongoing, and the entire tennis world held its breath. But here is what you absolutely must understand about those tears, because the lazy narrative is to look at that image and reduce it to weakness. The lazy, uninformed, small-minded take is to say she cracked under pressure and could not handle the moment. That is completely and utterly wrong. Those tears were not the tears of someone surrendering. Those were not the tears of someone who did not care enough. Those were the tears of someone who cared so deeply, fought so intensely, and gave so completely of herself that when the wall finally broke, everything came flooding out at once. Those were the tears of a warrior who found herself standing in the middle of a hurricane with no shelter and no weapons, trying with every last fiber of her being to stay standing. Those were the tears of paralyzing, gut-wrenching frustration, and anyone who has ever pushed themselves to their absolute limit in pursuit of something that matters deeply to them knows exactly what that feels like.
Because here is the brutal reality that the casual audience watching from their living rooms never truly grasps. They see the prize money, they see the glamorous trophies and the luxury sponsorships and the beautiful stadiums filled with thousands of cheering fans. What they do not see is the silence of the locker room after a crushing defeat. What they do not see is the suffocating, relentless pressure of representing an entire country that expects perfection every single time you step onto a court. What they do not see is the loneliness that is completely unique to individual sports. In a team sport, if you are having a nightmare, your teammates can cover for you. Your point guard can take over. Your defenders can protect you. You can go to the bench for 5 minutes and breathe and regroup and come back. But in professional tennis, there is no bench. There is no teammate. There is no timeout. There is no one to share the load. It is just you, your racket, and a scoreboard that is coldly and mercilessly counting your failures for the entire world to see in real time. That is the reality of professional tennis. And on that day in Stuttgart, Alexandra Eala felt every single ounce of that reality pressing down on her all at once. And Leylah Fernandez, for her part, showed absolutely zero sporting mercy. Not because she is a villain, not because she lacks compassion or sportsmanship as a human being, but because she is a professional tennis player who has fought and clawed and sacrificed for every single ranking point she has ever earned. Fernandez has faced her own brutal share of injuries over the years. She has endured her own heartbreaking losses on the biggest stages. She has watched her own ranking drop and fought her way back up with nothing but sheer determination and relentless hard work. She has been in the trenches herself. She knows exactly how fast the tennis media can turn on you. She knows how quickly public opinion shifts. And when she looked across that net and saw vulnerability in Eala's eyes, she did what every elite champion does. She pressed her foot directly onto the accelerator, and she did not lift it until the umpire called the match. That is not cruelty. That is the precise, cold, cutthroat mentality that is required to reach Grand Slam finals. You do not apologize for dismantling your opponent.
You exploit every weakness you find until there is nothing left to exploit. Now let me speak directly to every single person on social media who looked at that image of Alexandra Eala crying on that red clay and decided to use it as evidence that she is not built for the top. Let me address every person who took that scoreline and decided it means she has reached her ceiling. You know absolutely nothing about the mindset of a generational champion. Nothing. Those tears that Alexandra Eala shed in Stuttgart are not a symbol of fragility. They are not a sign that the pressure is too much for her. They are the opposite. They are proof that she cares with an intensity that most people in this world will never come close to experiencing. And that level of care, that depth of desire, is the raw material from which the very best players in the history of this sport have always been built. Think about it. Every single legend who has ever lifted a Grand Slam trophy in the history of tennis has been humiliated on clay. Every one of them has been broken down, exposed, and brought to their knees on the red dirt before they figured out how to conquer it. Rafael Nadal, the greatest clay court player who has ever lived, lost matches early in his career. Roger Federer, arguably the most gifted player the sport has ever produced, was reduced to tears in front of the entire world. These moments of absolute, shattering humiliation are not the end of the story. They are the beginning of it. They are the necessary, unavoidable foundation upon which greatness is constructed. And right now, in this moment, Alexandra Eala is laying that foundation, one painful brick at a time.
Because here is what is going to happen next. Eala is going to take this loss home with her. She is going to sit with the pain of it, let it burn, let it fuel her. And then she is going to go back to the practice courts. She is going to hit 10,000 second serves until her arm feels like it is going to fall off. She is going to spend hours every single day learning how to slide into the corners on red clay until her shoes are completely worn through. She is going to study every single thing that Fernandez did to her in that match and turn it into a lesson plan. She is going to take this devastatingly public emotional breakdown and convert it, piece by piece, into pure, aggressive, burning motivation. That is what champions do. They do not run from their worst moments, they weaponize them. This brutal loss, these tears that the entire world witnessed, this is not the story of a player who broke. This is the opening chapter of a player who is being forged. You cannot understand how to win at the highest level until you have fully experienced and absorbed the agonizing, soul-crushing, breathtaking pain of losing at it. The greats are not built in the easy matches. They are built in the moments exactly like this one. And every single tear that Alexandra Eala shed on that red clay in Stuttgart is a deposit into the account that is eventually going to fund something extraordinary. Leylah Fernandez deserves every bit of credit for what she produced in that match. Her experience, her footwork, her tactical precision, and her ruthless execution were a masterclass in clay court tennis from start to finish. She earned her victory completely, and she advanced to the next round fully deserved. But understand something very clearly. The defining story of that day in Stuttgart was never really about Fernandez advancing. The defining story was the brutal, unforgettable, necessary lesson that a young, fierce, fearless Filipino fighter absorbed on that court. Professional tennis does not care about your potential. It does not care about your rankings trajectory or your highlight reel or the expectations of an entire nation watching you from the other side of the world. It certainly does not care about your tears. It is a violent storm that will test you in ways you have never been tested before, and it will keep testing you until you either break completely or become something unbreakable. Alexandra Eala walked into a Category 5 hurricane in Stuttgart, and yes, she cried. She broke down. She showed her humanity in the most public and vulnerable way possible. But mark these words, and mark them carefully, because this is the part that the scoreboard will never be able to show you. Tomorrow, she will not be the one crying. Tomorrow, Alexandra Eala will not be the one standing in the hurricane. Tomorrow, she will be the hurricane. She will be the storm, and the rest of the tour had better start paying attention.